Hi, I'm David MacDonald. I'm the University Chaplain at Ohio Northern University, located in beautiful Ada, Ohio. I want to talk today about a Latin word called vocare. Vocare is a word that means to be called, and it's the word that we get our word vocation from. I believe that every person on this planet is called by God to do something of good in the world. And that discovery of your call or your vocation is our life's work. Vocation or calling is not just a one-time realization of what God wants you to do with a clear plan set out with all of the steps you need to go forward in your life. In fact, for most of us, realizing or claiming our vocation is a lifelong process that progresses slowly and builds over time. My own call came before I even knew who God was. It began with my parents, who nurtured me in the Christian faith. And in fact, my earliest memory of the church is actually my earliest memory of all. I can remember standing in the sanctuary of our old United Methodist Church as a child, looking at the light streaming in through the stained glass windows and feeling the warmth and the acceptance that I felt in that space. It was only later in my life that I realized that that was the beginning of the call that God had laid on my life. That church that I grew up in became my spiritual center, and it was a place that felt familiar to me, where I was most comfortable and most comforted. You see, I believe every person has a spiritual center. For some, that center may be warm images of glowing stained glass windows like mine, but for others, that center is much less welcoming and inviting. But because it's all they know, it's still the center for their spirit. The spiritual center is where we return when we don't know what else to do. It's like a center of gravity. It draws us back again and again, where we process the world in terms that make sense to us. Young people who are in college are at a point in their lives where they're stretching beyond their comfort zones, going from the center to the edge. The edge represents the places, the people, and the situations that are most unlike our centers. These can be the scary places where we don't want to go, or they might just be the places we're unfamiliar with. College forces you to confront your edges, and usually pretty quickly. I can remember my first week in college. I was assigned to a triad room. That's a room with 3 guys in it. Now, the problem with a triad room is that arguments usually come down to 2 against 1, and nobody is ever satisfied with the result. And in the midst of trying to negotiate these new relationships with my 2 roommates, I kept saying to myself, I don't know if I can do this for the next 4 years. And it was only after we began to experience each other's centers and edges that we began to build a relationship that helped us get through that first year and beyond. And that's exactly what happens when you bring a group of people together in a situation like college life. A whole lot of centers and edges that bump up against each other, and one person's center may represent another person's edge, and vice versa. An amazing thing happens, though, when you bring a diverse group of people together for spiritual formation. All those centers and edges begin to bump up against each other, and everyone's edges begin to expand, so that what was once unfamiliar now becomes very familiar. What was once scary is now understood and maybe even accepted. In this way, communities are able to help individuals to discern their vocation, and the collective vocation of the community also becomes apparent. That's why I'd like to share with the participants of Next 2016 about the work that we're doing here on our campus with a group of students who are exploring the concept of centers and edges. These students meet weekly for a time of silence, reflection, conversation, and creative expressions in a program that we call Merge. My presentation at Next 2016 would focus on telling the story of Merge while helping participants to discover their own centers and edges as we begin to listen to God calling us to expand our horizons and recenter ourselves around the vocations to which we are being called. If the planning team would like, I could even bring a couple of our students with me, and they could share their stories of participation in Merge. I'm open to any kind of format or conversation that you'd like to have about vocation and about centers and edges. I really look forward to hearing back from you, and I hope to see you all at Next 2016 this coming November.